Hey guys, welcome in Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside Mike Evans. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day. Thank you for subscribing. We really appreciate it. We've grown like a weed here recently, so we truly appreciate you guys. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Although I'm looking at I was just looking at one of the camera shots. What's that shirt you're wearing? Does it say cleats on your ass or cleats on the ass?
It's supposed to say cleats on the grass, but the G and the R kind of got taken out, and all you see is like cleats on.
Go the other way.
On your ass. That's all right. Hey,
That's
cleat up your ass or something
exactly.
like that.
Well, hey, we had some fun earlier this week, starting to break down all the divisions in the NFL.
Yeah.
And we did AFC East, NFC East. Well, today we're doing the North.
Okay.
And we'll start, if that's okay with you, we'll start with the NFC North.
Yeah, that's
all right.
fine.
I think there's a certain theme with every team, and with Detroit.
I'll get my notes.
Look at all those notes. Most beautiful handwriting, by the way, folks.
Well, these notes are kind of scribbly,
yeah,
so
but
they're not
for a grown man, this guy has penmanship like a 7th grade
Yeah.
girl. He even puts little hearts above his eyes. But Detroit, can they take the next step?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there's that idea that in sports you have to learn some real painful lessons before you break through. Can you think of a more painful lesson than what happened in the playoffs last year against San Francisco?
You know, live by the sword, die by the sword with Detroit and Dan Campbell, because that's the way they play. Do you know that in the last 3 seasons, he's gone for it on 4th down 118 times, and he's had 10 fake punt attempts, more than anybody else in the National Football League by a pretty large margin. So that's kind of how they operate as just a football team. But you think about it, 4 straight times before Dan Campbell got there 3 years ago where they lost the division. They were dead last in the division to the NFC Championship this year. First time they won a playoff game since 1991. I mean, this is the effect that Dan Campbell has had, that coaching staff have had. They're exceptional. And, you know, here's what I love about what Dan Campbell has done. We talk about grit. We talk about toughness. We talk about all those things. You know, you built your football team from the inside out. And it's just a lesson in what wins or what can win consistently. This roster, I think they returned 9 starters on offense. This roster is exceptional. They started with that offensive line. They drafted Decker in the first round years ago. They got Penei Sewell from Oregon in the first round several years ago. They've got Ragnow, who's a Pro Bowl player. I think 4/5 of this offensive line returns. They went out and got Zeitler from Baltimore as a replacement at the guard position. They are stoked, and then they built the rest of that football team. They went out and found Jared Goff, and he has become a top 10 quarterback. Amon-Ra St. Brown is outstanding. He's a great, great, great player. Sam Laporta had like 89 catches last year. They've got 2 running backs. The first 2 running backs in the NFL in NFL history to both have over 1,000 total yards and 10 touchdowns. First time that's happened in the history of the National Football League with Montgomery and Gibbs. So they are stout. They went out and got DJ Reader on the inside. Marcus Davenport, who was, a first rounder from New Orleans, had some injury issues to be the opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. This is a stacked roster, but they start with toughness. Their general manager, Brad Holmes, has done a really good job of putting people in place. I love the Detroit Lions. You walk into that building, the energy in that building is through the roof, and I credit Dan Campbell for that.
Do you think Dan Campbell dials back the aggressiveness, the go-for-it nature a little bit this year after what happened last year?
No,
I don't think so?
I don't. I think that's the way he wants to play. He wants and he just wants to be like, hey, man, I want to take my guys knowing that the odds are we're going to go for it on 4th down, takes the pressure off on 3rd down. They had the best 3rd down running game in football last year because they know they're going for it on 4th down. So it just takes some of that pressure off of them. They have more duality on 3rd down than any team in the NFL because of their propensity to go for it on 4th down. That 3rd down and 7 becomes a potential running play where nobody else in the NFL runs that way. So they do a lot of unique stuff that way. I think Ben Johnson, their offense coordinator, who had 9 interviews for a head coaching job, but chose to stay in Detroit. He wants the right job when he gets his opportunity. Has done a great job there. They're really a good team.
A lot of good positive momentum going on in Detroit. Same thing with Green Bay, the way that they finished up the season. So I'm going to kind of go at the Packers with this question. Was this love real?
Yeah.
Because by the end, dude was a what?
Dude, in his last
top 5 quarterback?
In his last 9 starts, he threw 29. It was last 9 or 10 starts, 29 3 TDs versus 1 interception.
29 TDs.
I mean, 23 TDs
23.
versus 1 interception.
23-1.
23-1. 37-13 last year. I mean, they started the season at 2-5, and then they went on that 7-3 run to finish the season at 9-8, get the playoff team, and absolutely dismantle the Dallas Cowboys in that playoff team or in that playoff game. Youngest roster in the league. You think about all their receivers are first-year or second-year guys, a couple of rookie tight ends that really produced. Now, they changed their defensive coordinator, which will be really interesting. First time Jeff Hafley, I think, is I don't know him.
Was the head coach at Boston College.
Yeah, but I don't know him well. But there's been some college guys who have come on and had a great impact on the in the NFL. Baltimore, Mike McDonald, who became Seattle's head coach, kind of went through that same transitional period. They're going to switch to a 4-3 defense, which really it used to be a big deal going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. But the way the NFL operates now, they've almost become interchangeable parts, because even if you play a 3-4, you're playing so much nickel, so much sub package, that you're really playing 4-down fronts and even 5-down fronts. So it's not the transition. I don't think is as big a deal as it used to be, Mike. You used to have a certain type of player, a certain type of body that you had to have to play a traditional 3-4, and it's not that way anymore. As a matter of fact, when I played here in Denver in the mid to late 90s, when we would play a true 3-4 team, we would play in nickel the whole game, meaning 3 wides. 3 wide. Nickel would be getting out of your base stuff. So we get out of the 2 tight end formations or the 2 back formations. Our base was 1 tight end and 2 backs, 21 personnel. And we would get out of that and get into 3 wides, because true 3-4 teams would match you in nickel, and nickel creates 4-down linemen. Your outside linebackers would become defensive ends, essentially. And so they get you in these 4-down, which keeps all your protection rules the same. So when we would play, like we'd play the Steelers, for instance, who were a traditional 3-4 team, we would always play them entirely in nickel and make them play a 4-down front, because it's easier that way. And not entirely. We'd have a few base things we would do in the running game, but for the most part, we would make them play nickel.
How about the swap out at running back? Aaron Jones, who's been so productive for Green Bay for a long time now. Josh Jacobs is there.
He was hurt last year. He missed some games. I think he missed about 6 games last year. Came back. I think he ran 100-plus yards in the last 5 straight games for the Green Bay Packers.
Played really well at the end.
Yeah, but Josh Jacobs has just been – he's almost got 7,000 yards in his 5 years as just a production machine, 46 TDs. Hell, I'm so glad he's out of the AFC West, because he was the Bronco killer.
He was a Bronco killer for the Raiders.
Well, the Raiders have won 8 straight games against the Broncos, so this guy is just incredibly productive, has done a great job with that stuff. And they've got some, Romeo Doubs, a great young player. Reed, the receiver that was a rookie, great young player. They just got a lot of young, big-time players, and they've done a good job offensive line-wise. Zach Tom has become an all-star. Jenkins at guard, who was a guy that can play all different positions, big-time player as well.
So Aaron Jones moves over to Minnesota now, so let's talk about the Vikings, where the question is there life after Kirk? And how quickly do they make the shift to J.J. McCarthy?
Right.
With Sam Darnold, a guy that I know you liked a lot after his year of football rehab in San Francisco. How long is it going to be Sam Darnold before the handoff to J.J.?
Yeah. Well, obviously that's going to depend on how they play. This is a complete rebuild. I mean, you think about what is it? What's his name? Quasi Adolfo Menso or something like that.
Yeah, you go with that.
Yeah, you know what? I probably have it written down here. Quasi Adolfo Mensa or whatever the GM's name is. Really nice guy. I've talked to him so many times. I really
You
have.
guys are tight.
No, we are. I'm like, but I can't say his name, so I apologize. But you know, he has basically said that's it. We're gonna revamp our entire. We're going with a new quarterback, getting rid of Kirk, and why we get rid of Kirk, and there's going to be this natural growing pain. You know, we're going to move some guys, and we're going to let some guys leave, and we're going to rebuild our football team. So kind of on the hot seat because these are the decisions you have to make.
Did you feel like they were a team that had like reached its ceiling and needed to be rebuilt? Or
no. But I
you were
just
surprised they're tearing it down.
I just think they look at I think they looked at it from the standpoint of, okay, Kirk Cousins. We've gotten pretty much everything we can get out of Kirk. He's a great guy. He tore his Achilles last year. How much longer is this guy going to play? There, I mean, the only hey man, no offense to Kirk because I really like Kirk, but the thing he's won is the salary game. That's what he's won. Because and so I think they looked at it like, hey man, he's more short term than long term, and we're thinking about building this team long term, so we're going to move on. And that's what they did. They have their head coach in Kevin O'Connell. They really like Kevin O'Connell. And he's tasked with creating or grooming his quarterback. Now, there's a lot of people that look at Sam Darnold and say, hey, he is what he is. I'm not one of them. I believe that Sam Darnold can have a Baker Mayfield type resurgence, maybe better than Baker Mayfield. And I know there's a lot of people that don't believe that, but I happen to believe it.
Why?
Well, I had this long discussion with Kyle Shanahan. And, Kyle's interesting because, I've known Kyle since he was 14 or so. And he just was like, when he got to the Jets, Jeremy Bates was kind of there. I think they were OC. And Jeremy came from Denver and the Peyton Manning, the whole Peyton Manning scheme. And the Jets at the time were trying to implement the Peyton Manning offense. And so Kyle was like, there's one guy in the history of football that can operate that offense, and it's Peyton Manning. It's his offense, essentially. And so there's no real, there was like, there's not a lot of progression throws. It's like, hey, man, if this, and do that, it's Peyton. And said, like, the first time he ever got into a true progression offense, because he went from the Jets to Carolina, where Matt Rule was operating a college system offense. And so he said the first time he really got into a true professional football style of offense was his last 6, 7, 8 games at Carolina when Ben McAdoo took over as the offensive coordinator after, Rule got fired. And so it's like what he did last year was incredible from a learning perspective. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to the point where he gets the majority of the season and they just continue to groom kind of almost, I know it won't be the same as what happened in Green Bay, but they almost continue just to groom J.J. McCarthy for the year. Now, obviously, if they get off to an 0-6 start, then all bets are off. But that's kind of the direction there. New defense, new edge players on the defense. Like there was a lot of turnover. There's a lot of change. Went out and drafted Dallas Turner out of Alabama, who is a difference maker. Danielle Hunter left, and they brought in Grenard, I believe, from Houston, who's a really good player. But just a lot of turnover on their roster.
Finally, certainly don't read anything into this, but finally you got the Bears, and I know for Bears fans, you're tired of thinking and talking about this. Is this the quarterback? I mean, you got to go back to what? Sid Luckman to find a real. I know they won with Jim McMahon and everything, but boy, it has been a long, long wait for that franchise quarterback, and there have been guys that have come along that were supposed to be that guy, and it hasn't worked out. Is Caleb Williams the guy? Is this the guy that's finally going to end the Chicago quarterback drought?
I'd say it's $64,000 question, or in this case, maybe it's the $640 million question or the $64 million, whatever it is.
Damn inflation.
Yeah. Matt Eberflus on the hot seat.
Yeah.
You know, the head coach, defensive guy. I really like him. I think he's a really good defensive, coach. Certainly on the hot seat. And what's interesting to me is we started this whole thing with Detroit and how they built their team from the inside out. Chicago's going to the exact, they're building it from the outside in. I mean, you look at the receivers they have right now. DJ Moore is that dude is a bona fide big-time player who is 1,200-yard plus receiver every year with whoever playing quarterback. All his time in Carolina, just whoever. Here in Chicago, whoever. Last year it was Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent. So, the guy is just a big-time producer. Then they get Keenan Allen, who I think is not a good football player, but a great football player with out of the Chargers. They draft Adunze out of Washington. They've got a couple of tight ends, new offense coordinator Shane Waldron, who brings that West Coast McVay style of offense with him. Komet's a really good tight end. Also brought Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett was with him with the Rams, then followed him to Seattle. Now he's in Chicago. So I like that. But you look at the offensive line, there's question marks. Darnell Wright at one edge. You got guys across the line of scrimmage that you question. Who's their left tackle? Let me see. Wait a minute. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. I got so many chicken scratch here. I can't even read my own. I can't read my own writing. Moore, isn't it Darnell Moore?
You already mentioned him.
Did I?
Yeah.
No. Are you sure? I don't know. Nate Davis was supposed to be really good. They drafted.
You have concerns about their offensive line.
Yeah. The fact that I can't even remember anybody. I said Darnell Wright.
Yeah.
Who's the left? Who's the kid? He was a fifth rounder. Did I not write it down?
Wow.
Darnell Wright. Oh, Brandon Jones.
Okay.
Or Braxton Jones. It's Braxton Jones. That's who it is. I nailed it. Draft a kid out of Yale that might compete for a starting job. That would be my big concern for them.
Well, obvious. Yeah. After that exercise, obvious you get some concerns about the offensive line.
I would have concerns about their offensive line. I only did 3 games. You'd think I'd know their names. Right. I can't remember that. That's how underwhelming they were.
Well, but you talked about Detroit, and you had no problem rattling off all these Detroit offensive linemen.
Those sons of guns could play. Right. I did about 3 games of theirs too,
exactly.
And they were a difference maker.
That's the issue there in Chicago. If you can keep Caleb Williams upright and give him time, I think one of the big things he's got some people to throw to.
Yeah, I think one of the big things about Caleb Williams too. You go back to and I looked at his college career. This is a guy that I went and studied some film from last year. I looked at a bunch. And everybody's, generational talent. Man, one of the slowest guys getting the ball out of his hand in college football. And there's a lot of, if that number one dude ain't open, just go scramble around and make a play. And it's not how the NFL works. You can't be a 50-50 on-schedule, off-schedule quarterback and survive in the NFL. You won't. And so you got to execute the offense. And you got to be on schedule 70-75% of the time.
So when Sean Payton, while he was doing television for Fox, said, this guy's a generational talent, this might be the kind of guy that you need to put a lottery system into play in the NFL because he's going to be so good. You don't see it.
I see the talent. There's no question about the talent. But generational talent doesn't mean generational quarterback. Joe Montana didn't have generational talent. He's one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. Tom Brady didn't have generational talent, but he is the GOAT of all quarterbacks. Peyton Manning didn't have generational talent, but he is great. Drew Brees didn't have generational talent. He's going to the Hall of Fame. There's a big difference between generational talent and being a all-pro great quarterback.
All right, give me your NFC North finish, 1 through 4.
I'm going to go Lions 1, Packers 2, Bears 3, Vikings 4.
How many teams make the playoffs?
I'm going to go Lions and Packers.
Okay. Bears just maybe missing out. Close?
I think
8-win team?
Yeah, 8 might be a little strong.
Okay.
6 to 7.
Okay. All right. Because I've seen some people being very, very bullish on the Bears this season.
I mean, I like their defense. I like what they did on the back end last year. I think they've got Jalen Johnson's one of the best corners in football. I mean, I think they've got some players, but
and you clearly love their offensive line. AFC North.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. AFC North.
We don't need to work on that. They need to work on it.
Yeah. What do you need to work on?
What do I need to work on it for? They need to work on it.
They impress you rather than you impressing
together over there.
All right. AFC North. I think with Baltimore, can Lamar Jackson overcome his playoff demons? It's as simple as that now, right? He has nothing left to prove in the regular season, but he has everything left to prove in the postseason.
Lost in the AFC Championship game last year against Kansas City, put up, 10 points? Kansas City scored 17 points, and they lost. With the league MVP playing quarterback, you could only produce – now, they had the fumble on the goal line, but you can only produce 10 points. Hey, man, think about this. John Harbaugh has been there now 16 years. He's the second longest tenured coach in football behind Mike Tomlin. They've been in the playoffs 11 of those 16 years. They've got one Super Bowl win, which was like early in his career with Baltimore. But yeah, I mean, this is Super Bowl or bust for Lamar Jackson. And he definitely improved. He's improved every year as a thrower. And Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator, I think they did a great job working together. But you look at Baltimore, man, they got to run the ball. They got to keep Lamar Jackson viable in the run game. They went out and got Derrick Henry, which is a beast. But in that AFC Championship game, their running backs had 6 carries, Mike. How does your running backs get 6? And I know they had a bunch of injuries and everything else, but how are you giving them 6 carries and just basically saying, Lamar, beat everybody from the pocket, which Lamar's never – it's just not been the way they've been wired, the way they've been created. So – you get in a tight playoff game and basically you abandon everything you do and say, go win it, Lamar. That was questionable coaching wise. But yeah, I mean that's where we are with Baltimore. Some defensive changes. They've lost their defensive coordinator. Anthony Weaver was on their staff. He went to be a coordinator. They had another guy leave their staff to go be a coordinator. So a bunch of changes on the defensive side of the ball for the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to be a big question mark. My former teammate, tight end Terry Orr, his son is now the defensive coordinator. I think he got elevated from a linebacker coach to the defensive coordinator. So this will be his first time calling plays. It'll be interesting to see exactly kind of what they look like on the defensive side of the ball.
Is it a stretch for me to say that the two players with the most pressure on them this season are Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson? Is that a stretch?
Well, I mean, Lamar's got 2 MVPs, so I don't.
Okay, but how is greatness ultimately defined?
How many championships you have?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
It's by what you do in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so, until he proves it in the playoffs, especially because of what he's done in the regular season, who's got more pressure on him?
Yeah, he's got. Well, when it comes to playoff time, there's nobody. When the playoffs start, there's not going to be anybody that has more playoff pressure than Lamar. 100%.
Cincinnati. Is it as simple as keep Burrow in a bubble?
Yeah.
Protect that man at all costs.
Put him in bubble wrap. It's like, was it Little Giants that, they had the one kid, they put him in bubble wrap, his mom did, because they didn't want to get hurt. Like, that's
what you want to do with him.
That dude had wrist surgery in, like, November. They did find out about their Browning, their backup quarterback, right? He did play pretty well and earn himself kind of a. But I mean that that whole organization under Zach Taylor is about Joe Burrow and spread offense and shotgun. And now they lost their running back. He left, and that dude Mixon was really good. So they've replaced him with Moss, Zach Moss. But yeah, it's all about their 3 wide receivers and and Higgins and Chase and that's what it's about for them. And again, built in a fashion to me that for my small pea brain doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Like, hey, it's all about our quarterback, so let's make sure we just get him all kinds of weapons. This may be the last year of having all those weapons together, but protection, what the hell? Who cares? We're gonna move on from protection. So that's a thing that scares me a little bit about how they're built. I'm not a big fan. They got Boyd and they went out and got Mike Gesicki as well, he might as well be a wide receiver, right? He's not going to block anybody. So that it's just like, here's my thought process on spread teams from a protection standpoint. The more spread we play, the more exotic blitz they play, because they got 4-3 guys on the field, and you got fat offensive linemen on the field. So my principle here is, when it comes to protection, let's get fat. Let's get as big and fat as possible to get more big and fat defensive players on the football field, because now this is science. I've studied this. Skinny people run faster than fat people.
No way.
Yes,
really?
Yes. Skinny people run faster. Fat people run into you. Skinny people run around you. I want fat people on the field as much as possible. And they're not constructed that way. That scares me a little bit about Cincinnati.
Cleveland. I guess it's as simple as this. It's now or never for Deshaun Watson. Are you going to get back to being the guy you were?
Yeah.
I think back with Deshaun Watson, because when it became apparent that Houston was going to trade him, I remember the conversations that were going on around all NFL cities, because we were having them here in Denver, and people were casually throwing out, I'd give up 5 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. That's how highly he was thought of. And now to see where he's at now, do you see him being able to get back to that level when everybody coveted him?
Yeah, last year he had this, like a fractured shoulder. He had surgery on his fractured shoulder. He only played 6 games. I think he played 6 games in 2022, 6 games last year. And the suspension, just all the legal trouble and legal issues. And let's face it, they were better when he was gone. I mean, they played 5 different quarterbacks. They got Flacco in November and took him on a 4-game win streak in December. There's no question about the talent on their roster. No question about the talent on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they're like, Myles Garrett is I would not do this podcast with a shirt on if I looked like Myles Garrett.
I
would be shirtless.
Just walk around without a shirt.
Shirtless at all times.
All times.
Yeah.
Why not?
Come get a taste.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, come get a look. And then I think Zadarius Smith on the other side is outstanding. Like, they are loaded. I love some of the moves they have made. But again, it comes down to, you're 100% right. It all comes down to Deshaun Watson. What does he become? And then can he become that with a question mark at the running back position? Because I can't imagine Chubb being ready to play. I mean, Ford's a nice player. Dante Foreman's a nice player. They've got some nice players, but it'll be really interesting. Then, I mean, Stefanski brings in, I think Ken Dorsey is the offensive coordinator, who was fired last year. Remember, he was fired last year in Buffalo, and then Joe Brady took over as a coordinator in Buffalo. So Alex Van Pelt leaves. He goes to New England. Dorsey comes in hopes that Dorsey's going to work with Deshaun Watson like he worked with Cam Newton and Josh Allen, although Stefanski's been the play caller there forever. By the way, Stefanski, this is the start of his 5th year as the head coach of Cleveland. The longest tenured coach since guess who in Cleveland? Start of his 5th year.
I'm going to say Bill Belichick.
100%.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick, 91 through 95.
Yeah.
He's can you imagine the longest tenured head coach since Bill Belichick? Dude, that is.
Well, you've been a factory of suck for a long time.
Right? Factory of sadness.
It's going to be reflected in your coach's tenure.
I love that fact they went out and got Jordan Hicks as a starting middle linebacker. Owusu Koromora, I think that's how you say his name. He can play. But you can just call him J-O-K. I like that, huh?
I like that.
Makes
so
it
it's
simpler.
all about Deshaun Watson.
It is.
He's going to have people to throw to.
No,
including your buddy, Jerry Jeudy.
I'm not allowed to talk about Jerry Jeudy. So I got in trouble. Jerry's going to be great.
Let's just say Mark was a little bit too
honest
and too truthful, too raw.
Right.
About Jerry Jeudy.
Cooper, I just saw an article. Cooper wants a new contract.
Of course he does.
He's the first receiver in Cleveland Browns history to have back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons.
He's been really good for them.
He really has.
I can understand why he's looking at it like, wait a minute, you've had Jerry Jeudy. You didn't even have Jerry Jeudy for like 5 minutes, and you
gave him a new deal.
the bag. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
me?
A
new deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we saved the best for last. Who knows where this one's going to go, but Pittsburgh. Does Russell Wilson, Mark, get the last laugh? And what will that last laugh sound like?
I don't know. I got Wolverine blood. Who knows? Like, I mean, I love, first off, I love Arthur Smith being there. Like, if anybody is going to get the best out of either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, I feel like it's Arthur Smith if he can allow himself to go back to running the ball and running the RPO game and running the quarterback zone read stuff and making the quarterback involved in that. Because I think the play action stuff that comes off of that, the run pass option stuff that comes off of that, I think Russ or Justin Fields could be very they could be efficient in running that. Now, like if you want to truly run it, I think Justin Fields is a better option because he's more apt to run it 10 times a game, right? And add that element to it where Russ probably isn't going to do that. But it'll be interesting to see exactly kind of how this plays out. Yeah, we all feel like Russ is going to get the first crack, first opportunity, but there is a part of you that just feels like, will he be able to maintain that? So that'll be interesting to see. George Pickens is outstanding, as you well know. I think Freiermuth is a big time tight end. They've got the two running backs, and Najee Harris is really good. What's the other kid's name?
Jaylen Warren.
Jaylen Warren. Yeah, Jaylen Warren can really play. So I think they're built.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're built the right way. Obviously, defensively, Cam Hayward had a groin injury like week 1 last year, and that slowed him down quite a bit. But T.J. Watt had 19 sacks last year. I like Alex Highsmith on the other side. Went out and got Patrick Queen, paid him a bunch of money to play middle linebacker for them. So like they've got talent. Fitzpatrick needs to come back and have a kind of a rebound season. Didn't get an interception or force a fumble last year for pretty much the first time in his career. So he needs to kind of bounce back. But I like their football team in general. Just a lot of questions about their quarterback position and what that offense is going to tend to look like.
All right, so Pittsburgh fans, you've probably already now gotten a sense of Russell Wilson and his relentless optimism.
Mm-hmm.
You've at times called it toxic positivity.
Right.
What would be your message, I guess maybe your warning to Steeler fans when it comes to what you think Russ's limitations are?
I think honestly that Russ has been sold a bill of goods by the people he surrounds himself with that the teams that he's on have limited him. And I think you need to come to grips, all players need to come to grips with what they're good at and what they're not good at. Probably more importantly, what you're not good at. And you know, Russ, historically, you look at just the amount of sacks he takes. Probably on average, he's taken 45 sacks a year. Now, you think about how that limits you as an offense. Okay, this is a big issue for Russ and the Steelers. You take 45 sacks a year, say roughly 3 sacks a game. You got essentially 12 possessions on offense per game. And if you take a sack in a possession, it eliminates almost, I mean, it gives you about a 12 to 18% chance of actually scoring any points on that drive. It essentially eliminates the drive. Like you've got essentially no chance if you take a sack. So you effectively say, okay, in 12 drives, let's say the average score in the NFL is about 20, what points?
23, 24 maybe.
Okay, so you're saying of 12 drives, you've scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal essentially.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So you've scored on 4 drives.
Yep.
So you've scored on, what, a third of your drives, right? Now all of a sudden we say, all right, each sack takes away a drive. So now we've taken it from 12 potential drives down to 9 potential drives, right? And now if we're only scoring on a third of those, instead of 4, you're down to what?
That'd be 2 touchdowns and a field goal.
Right.
Now you're down to 17 or 21 points.
Yeah, and so it just the amount that sacks just crush you as an offense. And this is a guy that will constantly, either because of height and the short passing game has really become prominent in the National Football League. Well, you think about the short passing game, you're sitting in gun, right? Or you're sitting in you're taking a 3-step drop. The D line is pushing the O line to you. You lose vision when you're shorter, and his propensity to not throw it to the open guy because he either doesn't see him or he doesn't like it, and pull the ball and take sacks. It is, when I talk to the guys in Seattle, they'd say, hey, man, 35, 40% of all the sacks we give up are on Russ. And if you talk to Sean Payton, he would tell you the same thing, maybe more, are on Russ. So it's an issue. We'll see exactly. But it was an issue for Justin Fields as well. Not only was their O-line not great last year in Chicago, we've clearly documented that on this podcast because I don't know anybody on their offense.
Right.
Clearly, we've documented that.
All right, so in the NFC North, you had Detroit, Green Bay, Chicago, Minnesota.
Yeah.
How about your AFC North pecking order?
I'm gonna go Baltimore, Cincy, Pittsburgh, Cleveland.
And who makes the playoffs?
Baltimore, Cincy.
Okay. Good job.
All right, buddy. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, we appreciate you. Next week, we'll do the NFC and AFC North or South and West, right? We've got those 2 left. So we'll knock those out next week as well. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. We appreciate you. And plus any breaking news that happens. We just didn't see any real breaking news that was earth-shattering to us. So we'll be back with you guys next week. Thanks. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth, we thank you so much. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. If you want to see more of our videos, you can also be sure to check out our playlist. Let us know exactly what you think in the comments below. We appreciate you guys so much for being a part of that.
Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.